Bueno, chicos, buenos días todavía. A continuación vamos a tener como última actividad del CONLE estudiantil algo que espero que todos aquí sean bilingües, porque vamos a tener una presentación totalmente en inglés sobre la satisfacción laboral después de la pandemia. Les doy un pequeño marco yo, porque en el momento que la compañera Maffer tome el micrófono, ya todo es en inglés. Entonces, chicos, la verdad esto es muy importante y se busca con este evento concientizarlos a ustedes de que manejar el inglés actualmente es de vital importancia. Entonces, no le quito más tiempo a la compañera Maffer. Adelante.
Bueno, muy buenos días, soy Maria Fernanda Godinez Salinas y el día de hoy les voy a hacer una presentación sobre el tema la satisfacción laboral durante y después de la pandemia de COVID-19. Well, good morning everyone. It is a pleasure to have you here. My name is Maria Fernanda Godinez Salinas and today I am here to present a topic that I'm sure many of us know very well, each of us. And at some point, several of us may have closely observed the terrible impact it was capable of causing. In fact, today it continues to be present in society, and it is crucial to continue to be cautious. This is job satisfaction during and after COVID-19. 3 years ago, my friends and I were in a class. Everything was proceeding normally until a sudden warning made us feel very confused. We had to leave now. The morning was barely gone, and it wasn't hard to relate that moment to a very serious problem that was developing at that time. Days before, I remember reading in the news that the first case of COVID-19 was already present in the city of Villahermosa. In a New Year's Eve celebration, I also remember reading about a strange contagious disease that was detected in China, and I started to wish that, hopefully, that unexpected news could be resolved soon. But I also believe that it couldn't go any further. It was a situation that only the Chinese population, was going to face, right? I was wrong, so wrong. And this situation occurred in December 2019 and spread on a global scale until Mexico met it in 2020. And it might feel like it happened yesterday or a while ago. But those days that we had to wait to return to the normality, our normality, were many. And maybe many of us knew we had made a mistake in our assumptions when the quarantine had to last more than a month, for example. Being this waiting one of the most surprising processes that caught us all off guard, and in which classes were suspended and many jobs were forced to find ways to adapt to digital tools, to move forward, or to reinforce the knowledge they already had about them in order to survive. Normality, that term that we related to the daily routine we had before, was drastically modified. A new normality came, and with it, numerous changes in an attempt to not be defeated by this unexpected phenomenon. At this point, I would like to briefly integrate the beginning, the meaning of this pandemic, and its influence. In the Chinese province of Wuhan, numerous cases of an unidentified sickness were reported towards the end of 2019. After some time, scientists quickly discovered that the disease was caused by a virus called SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 informally. Even though the precise cause of the illness is still unknown and strongly debated, by March 2020, the disease had spread to the rest of the world, to many countries. And this is the mark or the start of the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. Being near an infected person increases the chance of COVID-19 transmission and spread since it is a respiratory disease. It is reasonable to argue that this pandemic has had an ongoing impact worldwide, and it had an influence in every practical way imaginable, including a slowdown in supply chains, changes in corporate strategy, and a growing number of political divisions. And the first SARS-CoV-2 positive sample was reported in Mexico on February 27, 2020, from a patient who was returning from a trip to Italy. The number of cases increased to 80 by March 4th, which strongly suggests that the virus is starting to spread throughout the community. Then a nationwide epidemiological alert was declared by the Mexican government on March 20, 2020, putting the entire population under lockdown and allowing only activities associated to governance and security services, the health and the economy to continue. Also, a number of reports stated that a growing number of typical COVID-19 symptoms have been revealed globally, including cough, fever, heavy breathing difficulties, sperm production, headache, myalgia, and fatigue. The less common symptoms were minimal breathing difficulties or nausea. As of March 19, 2022, the Mexican Health Ministry, SSA, for Secretaría de Salud, its acronym in Spanish, had released official epidemiological reports indicating over 5.7 million confirmed cases and 324,000 deaths. The Omicron variant and its subvariants have been circulating in Mexico since December 2021. And even though this information has been an important disease along all the world, and the less common comorbidities were heart disease, renal insufficiency, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and other immunosuppressive conditions. The strong ones were diabetes with 9.5%, obesity with 10.5%, and hypertension with 12.7%. If the focus of the SARS-CoV-2 is based on companies and studying the different types, we can remember that there was a turning point for each one of them, since in one way or another, COVID changed something in our lives. The micro, small, medium-sized, and large enterprises had to reflect the aspects in which they needed to renew themselves. There were some that could not achieve it, and others that could. It was a long period of time that we had to wait to progressively return to face-to-face activities, and respecting the measures on the precautions required to take care of each other. And if we think about those businesses that managed to survive during this terrible pandemic, we will know that as a result, nothing was the same. The way we communicated, the way we act, the way we thought, even all those small details that defined us were different from who we were years ago. They might reflect it and decided that there's nothing more important than health, because without it, nobody can move forward anymore. And as you may know, health is equally divided into different types, such as physical, mental, emotional, or environmental health, those that are significantly influenced by the circumstances in which we live. The work environment is no stranger to these cases. So when we think about the situations that companies went through during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, we may wonder, how do workers feel in their new work environment? Do they feel happy and secure in it? What do workers think about the decisions that have been taken during this new stage? Rather, do they feel satisfied? An interesting fact is that many studies have been carried out among health professionals to evaluate the impact of the pandemic on job stress, depression, anxiety, and insomnia. And if we want to understand the conditions of job satisfaction during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, we must first begin by defining that term. According to author Shondari and Saini 2021, job satisfaction is defined as subjective happiness at work and refers to employees' contentment and happiness with aspects related to their jobs. Because it has a substantial impact on workers' job performance and other management performance metrics such as customer loyalty, perceived quality, customer loyalty, happiness, and satisfaction, job satisfaction has been the subject of management research. And despite the variety of definitions of job satisfaction, it has been one of the most extensively researched issues among organizational psychology and business science. Nevertheless, the term job stress relates to individuals who had or perceive stress on some situations. When significant goals and results fail to be accomplished, workers may feel distressed on a mental and physical level. Furthermore, a primary cause of workers' poor health conditions in a mental, physical, or emotional health or situation is job stress. Better job performance is associated with a higher level of job satisfaction, and happier and more productive workers have healthier lifestyles as a result of a higher level of job satisfaction. 5 essential dimensions, including autonomy, feedback, identity, and significance and variety, are considered intrinsic job features by authors Judge and others since 1998. Positive self-evaluations of job outcomes were associated with a positive assessment of work experience or a better and a happier experience on these dimensions, which helps to identify the levels on job satisfaction. In order to explain the following points and to support them correctly, it is necessary to know the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside sources, where intrinsic motivation originates from within. When you are intrinsically motivated, you are going to desire to do something because you find it enjoyable and fulfilling. If you act on a way that seeks to obtain an outside benefit or an external reward, then you are motivated by external factors or extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation can be achieved through different circumstances. For the intrinsic ones, these are the details are involved. We have fair payment, insurance and bonuses, favorable working conditions, good office environment, and good relationships with colleagues. On the other hand, we have the extrinsic motivation that can be obtained by job expectations versus reality, the sense of meaningfulness of the job performed, personal interest and enjoyment, work-life balance, and more. But those are the ones that I'm going to explain. These are related to the factors that are capable of increasing job satisfaction, such as sense of accomplishment, where employers who actively acknowledge their workers' professional accomplishments, encourage them to advance, and provides help for criticism, creates a sense of earned achievement and work on their workers. Then we have optimism or calm optimism of the company's leadership. This says that staff morale and job satisfaction are often increased by team management who have a genuine awareness of the COVID-19 difficulties and develop effective strategies to overcome them. Then we have efficient health insurance programs, and this says that at any hour, at any day, any of those can contract this or any other disease. So companies that prioritize the emotional and physical wellness of their employees and offer excellent benefits packages will have happier employees because of this major decision on behalf of their health. Then we have hybrid work models. A study of 2018 discovered that 61% of people reported feeling lonely at work, even before the global epidemic. The way that employment was currently going throughout the global pandemic didn't help, and because of working remotely, the main worries among employees were loneliness and the lack of communication. However, they didn't enjoy the idea to have to return to their offices either. In fact, when someone forced them, 60 or 52% of employees said that they would prefer a hybrid strategy when it was given the option to work both remotely and on-site, and wanted to have more options because people who have more opportunities feel more in control of their lives and are therefore happier in their jobs. And then we have work-life balance. While remote work gives employees some help to try to manage their professional and personal lives or duties, it doesn't limit itself to job satisfaction. Employees will feel happier if they see that you're attentive to their specific demands, such as flexible scheduling, employee support programs, counseling services, some time off, etc. Then we have the factors that decrease job satisfaction during those times, which were excessive workloads. And it says that it is important to strike a balance because in 2021 alone, 4 out of 10 employees reported experiencing symptoms of anxiety, compared to the 1 out of 10 reported in 2018. Businesses that don't recognize the value of employee engagement are walking on thin ice. They dramatically raise their turnover rates by giving them unreasonable, heavy workloads and unrealistic deadlines. Then we have the lack of organizational communication. The absence of the present factor communication regarding COVID-related plans and initiatives inside the organization increases the chance of burnout among employees by 2.9 times. As evidenced by the same research, 49% of employees reported feeling somewhat burned out already, only 2 years ago. Nobody needs to tell us how much this can affect the job satisfaction score. Then we heard the fear of contracting COVID-19. This is majorly related to those jobs that can be done from a distance. So when employees had to report that they were ill and they couldn't go because they didn't want to risk the other staff members, they naturally felt sad and worried. So, they naturally felt sad and worried. This is related to those certain jobs that need direct communication and interpersonal interactions. Then we have the stigmatization of sick leave, and it says that the stigma surrounding sick time needs to end. The American workplace culture demands that employees perform above and beyond their duties for which they are compensated for. Mexico is also considered here. So this may result in a stigma of sick leave and absenteeism requirements, which should not make employees feel guilty for leaving their workplace due to health reasons. In this case, managers may want to reevaluate their strategy though, because as evidenced by the same research and other recent studies, it says that companies lose over $226 million a year because of workers' poor health conditions, leading to a reduced efficiency, excessive stress, and other problems. If these problems are not solved, if the necessary support is not provided, the situation worsens. And the last one is feeling insecure about job position and or salary. One significant but reasonable contributing position or contributing factor is feeling insecure about one's job position and or salary during those times as a consequence of COVID-19. People became and still become mentions when there are large-scale job cuts, a recession, or elevated joblessness rates, like the 30% recorded on May 2020. In another recent study, it was revealed that the various ways in which people's daily lives were affected during these times varied significantly depending on their age. Older adults, for example, tended to report higher levels of anxiety, depression, as well as increased health concerns, while younger adults and teenagers were more likely to report disruptive lifestyles and increased conflict at home. This result supports the argument made in a recent declaration position and other sets that there is really enough reason to be concerned about the mental health of individuals during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. However, it also shows that the various ways in which all age groups were affected during those times are worth observing. Not least of all, an additional instance relates to individuals who have pre-existing mental health conditions, and it says that these persons were more susceptible to demonstrating the adverse effects of the pandemic and in varying degrees, based upon having a diagnosis on obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, anxiety, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and more. Similarly, the probability of developing post-traumatic stress disorder was higher for people with severe COVID-19 illness. Each of the diseases strongly influenced the job satisfaction that workers recorded as well. On another recent study, there have been not many published studies investigating the variations in physical activity and sleep patterns among Mexicans prior to and during the COVID-19 lockdown until a while ago. In one of them, for example, in this first graphic, it is shown that there were changes on dietary habits too during the lockdown. There was an affirmative and visible rise of the frequency of fruit, vegetables, and legume consumption. As a disadvantage, participants of the survey said that there was an increase in fast food and alcoholic beverages that they consumed too. Before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, 26.3% of people say that they did not engage to any physical activity, And during those times, during the lockdown, that number jumped to 35.8%. Respondents spent a great amount of work-related and non-work-related screen time at computers, TV, cell phones, tablets, reading, social networks, series, etc. during the lockdown. And it says that there was an increase on about 1% for those people that watch the screen during 7 to 12 hours per day, and 6.5% for those who watch it during 13 to 18 hours per day, almost a complete day. Let's keep the attention on this data that allows us to examine the case of the Mexican population. This is the next and the last graphic. There was 48.5% of people who said that they slept during 6 to 10 hours per day, and 16.1% for those who slept more than 10 hours, despite getting more hours of sleep overall. In the study, participants said that were changes in the quality of it because of an increase on those experiencing nightmares with 8.1%, insomnia with 28.9%, and leg pain or cramps, which represented a great risk for health. And in the last one, was 5%. It is clear that this situation was not the only one manifesting itself in Mexico, but also in other countries. And it is also evident that these were times of great ups and downs that had a strong influence in intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. The two most common worries among employees were the social isolation and illness, as it is hard to keep cordial relationships with colleagues when they are working from home, and stay healthy. Employees' negative energy was being driven by problems like maintaining the workplace, internet stability, and extended working hours. That's why team management should be considered enough to take these problems into consideration and assist them in overcoming these obstacles. It is recommended that employees also participate in decisions about working from home, as there are no one-size-fits-all solutions that can adequately address a variety of roles, tasks, and personal situations of each one of the employees. Personnel who suffer from a disequilibrium in their professional and personal lives, also known as work-life disequilibrium, are more likely to consider quitting their respective companies or jobs. On the other hand, those who can achieve a balance are far more inclined to stick around, leading to a substantial reduction in employee turnover. And these results emphasize how important it is to keep work-life balance one of the highest priorities to keep valuable talent in all organizations. According to previous studies, COVID-19 has been associated with several psychological problems, including moral harm, severe stress, fear of disease, extreme anxiety, and depression. The coronavirus influences the presence of corporate personal insecurity, job instability, and job satisfaction. And this supports the notion that the disease makes workers feel even more stressed at their jobs. But the authors on the same study has shown that organizational resilience can modify the connection between job stress and perceived threat, which improves job satisfaction. For example, those people who live with their family didn't have COVID-19, work outside home once a month, and didn't experience difficulties while adjusting to a new environment or their new normality, have been found to be happier in terms of job satisfaction. On the other hand, we have that people with higher anxiety levels were those who didn't live with their family, had contact with COVID-19, disobeyed isolation regulations or someone close to them, and were unable to follow the quarantine procedures completely or easily. Nevertheless, that is not the only thing that has been found. Job turnover collapsed during the first 10 months of the quarantine, and people were content, were happy to hold on to what they had, even if they hated their jobs. Millions of workers had no other choice but to continue turning up at work in stores, making deliveries, working at factories, often giving a great personal risk. Nearly half of all employees with advanced degrees could work remotely or from their homes, whereas over 90% of people said that if they had just a high school diploma, were required to work in person. These days, all tech companies like Twitter, Shopify, Reddit, etc., are starting to give the option to work permanently from home or creating co-working spaces for those employees who live far away from their offices. In reality, or in the last years, for example, Google and Microsoft are currently working to fully integrate the notable remote video conferencing capabilities into meeting spaces. These are some of the initiatives related to how the world is managing after the global pandemic. Organizational leaders must keep an eye on their workers' job satisfaction equally when they are implementing hybrid working, particularly when working from home has its influence in their activities, behavior, and even work-life balance. The workload that needs to be completed must also be taken into consideration since collaborating remotely gives challenges too, like limited facilities and inaccessible technologies in numerous cases. Even employees from global companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Facebook are not required to return to their offices for a minimum part of each week in some cases. Besides, like many human resources directors or HR directors, asking their personnel what they need and act according to that information is called active listening. Today, workers anticipate compassionate bosses who genuinely care about each one of the employees' happiness and well-being, as well as communication is an essential requirement for employee engagement since the pandemic and always in fact. And like any significant change in our lives, there are two sides of its effects, where employers and employees have gained new opportunities and freedom of choice that they were unaware that was possible. For example, mothers of young kids can now work from home guilt-free and take on roles that were not previously possible for them. Digital nomads can now explore foreign countries while remaining connected to their jobs, and people who love their jobs but dislike the commute or social interactions can now return to their offices once a week or not at all. Employers can now hire without considering any location, greatly expanding their access to the talent pool. Additionally, some costs are reduced because it is not required a full-time office presence anymore in some cases. Moreover, some businesses have been testing out online social hours, while others have made sure to provide the necessary resources to assist the workers who are experiencing mental health issues, expanding their employee flexibility to help them to cope with the challenge of balancing their professional and personal lives. These are all excellent strategies for employees to feel treated like people rather than just a mere function. Although talent has always been an essential requirement for all companies and company success, the pandemic has made employee retention even more important, and this is all for job satisfaction. Employee loyalty will endure any crisis if they are treated like human beings and are generally involved in all decisions, no matter how big or small, and companies pay attention to what they think or what they have to say. And with the goal to maintain a healthy work environment where employees tend to remain loyal and positive, not only to their jobs, but also to themselves, it is imperative that all organizations can confront work-related stress and take all proactive steps required to reduce the negative impact of job stress and other negative job practices. Let's not forget how crucial this is for employee engagement and job satisfaction, because job satisfaction is the key to know how to give a favorable experience for the benefit of the growth of the personal, companies, and the society itself. One of the most crucial aspects in a person's life is their job. Therefore, having a happy workforce has to be an essential goal for all organizations. We must look for it no matter what. So that's all for now. That's all for today. Thanks for your attention, and thank you for being here. Gracias.
Bueno, compañeros, se ve que la gran mayoría entendió y me gusta que todos los compañeros que están aquí saben y dominan el idioma universal que es el inglés.